What is up, team? Welcome back to the Red Storm Rapid Reaction Podcast. I'm Pat Kane. That's Cole Latshaw. St. John's just beat Harvard 85-59 to finish their Carnesecca season before Christmas. A rarity for them to finish their Carnesecca games this early. Cole, your thoughts on how they just dismantled Harvard in that second half?
Huge shout out to Lefteris Leotopoulos with 8 late points, getting me the comfortable cover, the over in the 23.5-point spread. So greatly appreciate that. My wallet really appreciates a few extra bucks. Anytime that you get one last good win right before conference play starts, it's probably a good thing after that yucky taste from the Kentucky game. So you get to wash that out. I think our fan base would have loved to see us play a real solid 40 minutes opposed to, 12 minutes of not beating down Harvard, of trailing them with about 8 minutes left to go in the first half. But you finish the half on a 10-0 run, 20-2 run. You force 15 turnovers in that first half, 9 turnovers, 15 points off the turnovers. So I think all in all, we have to be happy with getting another win before conference play. Hopefully we can. Bryce Hopkins sort of played a lot better than he had the last 5 games. So you hope he brings some confidence now as we get into conference play. All in all, happy to cover, happy to get a win. Let's get into conference play and start spanking the Big East like we just spanked Harvard.
Shout out to Lefty for giving Cole some extra spending cash coming up on the holidays here. That line wasn't looking too promising with the way St. John's started. A little bit of a slow start. Defense was giving Harvard too much of what they wanted early on. Took St. John's to get going on the offensive end for them to apply some pressure full court to really pick it up on the defensive end. Eventually they got there. Not a perfect game by any means. Like you said, good to see Bryce Hopkins show a little fight, show a little fire. Was aggressive early on the boards and inside. Ended up with 14 points on a pretty decent night. Ian Jackson, 14 points as well. Zuby had a nice solid night, 14 points, 9 rebounds. Couple assists, a real all-around contribution from pretty much the whole team. Anybody in particular stand out to you?
I thought just the points in the paint, scoring 42 points in the paint, they were really dominating the inside. Obviously, Zuby played well. You mentioned Bryce Hopkins. Ian Jackson, super comfortable shooting the ball from deep, so that was great. Also, I thought it was Isaiah Sellers. I was a little critical of him putting the ball on the ground a little too much and taking the ball to the rim these last couple of games, but he had some really great drives and finishes around the rim, so that was good to see. If he has to make people respect him a little bit more, putting the ball and driving to the basket, maybe that opens up a few more open looks from deep for him. Dominating the point. You had 14 more points in the paint than Harvard did. I think that was a really, really good sign for our front court.
Yeah, Sellers, when he's able to get 2 feet in the paint and kind of explode, he's really capable around the rim and does show a little bit of the versatility you might not expect. But tonight was cold from the perimeter. 2 straight nights where he hasn't hit a 3, I don't believe. Hopefully that doesn't become any type of consistent thing going on throughout Big East play. Let's see, Jackson, Sannons, and Sellers tonight combined for 14 threes, 8 of which came from Jackson, who was 4 for 8. Not a bad number overall, 14 of them. And tonight they each, 25 plus for the 3 of them in the starting lineup. I'm not sure if we've seen that on more than a few occasions this year. It doesn't look perfect yet by any means. I think there's definitely quite a bit of overlap, perhaps too much overlap for it to ever be perfect. But I think Ian's definitely made progress. He's more comfortable. And in turn, Coach Pitino has seemingly loosened that leash up just a little bit. It's still pretty tight there, and he's not letting hold of it completely. But you've seen some progress. You've seen some confidence boost. Conversely, Sellers has kind of gone backwards in this past week or so. Maybe just a coincidence. These are just a couple game stretch. Obviously, he hasn't shot it well. And then Josan, if anything, he is confident in his play. Sometimes that confidence leads to some inopportune misplaced shots, in my opinion, and other times it's exactly what we need because we struggle to create shots in the half court. But our hope and our best potential, our highest ceiling, I think, is those 3 guys finding a rhythm of some sorts, a balance on both ends, and being to the best of the ability. And if you want to hold off or want to hold out for potential to see St. John's reach a real high ceiling, then you could, rest assured we haven't seen that yet. Is it possible? Perhaps. Is it possible we don't? Perhaps.
Also, I got to continue shouting him out after dragging him in the early season as Dylan Darling's 3-point percentage continues to creep its way up. 1 for 3 today. So, that 24% numbers will continue to go up. So that's a good thing. I jokingly kid about that, but the more three-pointers he's putting in, the more other teams are going to have to respect that. And I think that opens up his ability to drive just that much more.
Absolutely. And, you already mentioned it quickly, but Lefty with his 2 for 2 from 3, good to see him going. I mean, looks like a shooter. We hear from the staff how good of a shooter he is. Eventually, that's got to equate to more makes. He was at 20% before this game started, and gotten, if not consistent opportunities, somewhat more consistent than he had opportunities to this point this season. So good to see 2 of them drop. And then, Prey was his normal tough self, 4 rebounds, 2 blocks, physical inside, but, not his best effort after a really good effort against the Kentucky front line, who, obviously is much better than this Harvard team.
Yeah, I thought Ruin looked physical again. So I think he continues to give you good minutes spelling Zuby. So that's super important. And really, really, really thought Lefty looked great. And I mean, granted, it was slop time at the end of the game, but it's good to see him confident and pulling up from deep like that.
Slop time. Okay. Hey, don't tell Lefty that. Don't tell Pitino. He was still coaching to the final
He
buzzer.
coaches them to the final buzzer. He, wanted them to take pride and not giving up 3-pointers. You saw that great little coach's inside peek on that sideline there, and he was yelling at him about not giving up threes despite having a 20-point lead. It's good to see him coaching like that to the final whistle. And we know how much of an emphasis he puts on practice, and so he's not going to just write off those final couple minutes of the game. If a kid's playing well, that might earn him more minutes going forward.
And he was still pulling guys up until the last couple of minutes and having them sit right there in that lead seat, the coaching seat there against Coach Mass. Always looking for lessons to teach guys. Anyway, 85-59. If it wasn't for that slow start defensively, St. John's could have perhaps held Harvard close to 50 points. Even in these games against these lower level teams, and St. John's just finishes off their non-conference slate here. These metrics we've seen play a big part in your overall resume, how you're perceived by the analytic side of things. And then, of course, that's becoming more and more important to how you fare come tournament time. So 26-point win, obviously not terrible, but I think St. John's left some meat on the bone there and could have perhaps had a 30, 35-point win against Harvard. And everything helps, especially with our lack of marquee win heading into, New Year's.
Yeah, let me ask you, what was your takeaway of Ian Jackson's performance today? Again, a lot of primary ball handling responsibility. It seems like Rick is hell-bent on making Ian Jackson our starting point guard. That I think really increases our ceiling if he's able to get those skills. How did you think Ian performed today? Well, obviously, we know he shot well from deep. What did you think about his ability to create for others?
Well, while I answer this, I'll ask, does Pitino owe Zach Braziller an apology? Because there was a little bit of an overlap for at least 5 to 6 minutes in the first half where Darling and Jackson played together and played well together, I might add. But, a couple of games ago, Rick snapped back and said that's Darling's position. They wouldn't be playing together. Anyway, I think there's got to be times where they're on the court together just, by sheer nature of what they bring to the table. I think Jackson's getting more and more comfortable playing within the system defensively, doing those small things in terms of boxing out, getting his hands on loose balls. I think with that, he's found a lot more confidence in his jump shot and knowing when it's going to come. I still don't see much lead guard, even when he is, quote unquote, given that title with the starting lineup. Nothing that struck me as terrible. Like, I don't think it hurt us in any sense tonight, but there was really nothing. I will say maybe once or twice I noticed him making real intended post feeds early in the possession. Maybe that's something that's been worked on in practice these last few weeks.
Yeah, I thought he had a few really nice passes into the post to Zuby, at least one specifically. I can think of a real nice long bounce pass.
Which is important, and his progress, definitely. Maybe it's more so our system that really doesn't have that pick and roll spread style that many teams seems to have, that have guards operating more in a facilitator role that we don't seem to have.
I thought there were a couple really interesting post-game quotes from the post-game presser. Rick Pitino said about Ian Jackson, Ian is improving every day. The last hurdle for him is to cut down his turnovers. Last thing is to really enjoy contact on the glass. Can you get a tough girlfriend or something to beat you up? So
Wow. Okay, how about that, Rick? Have your pen ready. Never know what he's gonna say there.
And then Ian Jackson was asked if playing the point guard position is more difficult than he expected, and he said no, not really.
Ian was asked that?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, what do you expect him to say there? I don't know. What did you think? Do you think this was one of his better performances in terms of handling the ball and being the one, quote unquote?
Not necessarily. I like I mentioned, I did think some of those feeds to Zuby in the paint were some good, impressive passes. I mean, he's had flashes of an ability to create for others at times over these last couple of games. It's good to hear that they say he continues to improve every single day in practice. Hopefully that continues to translate onto the floor. Rick mentioning specifically turnovers, that's obviously something coming from practice because he didn't have a turnover today. But yeah, I mean, I just think it elevates our ceiling that much more if Dylan Darling's able to be the main ball handler coming off the bench and not expected to be playing 33 minutes at the point guard position tonight. Your ceiling becomes that much higher if Ian Jackson is able to handle that for 24 minutes, and then you have them sort of on the court together for a little bit during the game, and then Dylan Darling's able to sort of play the rest of the game, those other 16 minutes as the backup ball handler. I just think that increases your ceiling so much.
Agreed. And we'll see how that looks in this early stretch of Big East play. St. John's, for better or for worse, like we said, doesn't see UConn until February, and we've talked at nauseum about the weakness of the Big East is certainly not in its top of the league. In terms of its strength, is not at the depth of the top of the league. So we'll just look at our first 4 games here, Cole. You tell me our thoughts. New Year's Eve night, Georgetown down there in DC. Then we have a home game versus Providence. Then back-to-back road games at Butler, at Creighton. So 3 of the first 4 on the road after you get that first kind of pseudo Big East start against DePaul before 2 more non-conference games. It almost doesn't feel like a Big East game. But Georgetown, Butler, Creighton, 3 teams were definitely better than on paper and expectations and, what we've been playing, but road games nonetheless. So tough little start.
Yeah, I think you're going to be favored in all 4 of those games. Would it surprise me if St. John's dropped games in the Big East? No, it's a rock fight. We know what the Big East is, but I think obviously it's down more than it has been in previous years. I'll do you one more than just looking at those first 4 games. If we go all the way to the UConn game in February, you got 11 games there. People have thrown around the number 9-2. I don't think it's unrealistic to hope for 10-1, 11-0 going into that UConn game. That would re-energize the program, the fan base. If you're 11-0 heading into that UConn game, people will be fired up. So I don't know. That Butler road game, Hinkle has obviously been a house of horrors for a long time. Those Creighton fans, hopefully it's not dollar beer night for the Creighton game for us.
Always seems to be.
It's Saturday, 2:00. Very well could be.
Wow.
But they're playing much better after obviously a really poor out of conference start. That Villanova road game on a Saturday night will be tough, but I'll be in the house and liquored up for an 8 p.m. start. So I'll bring the juice for the Rick Pitino and the boys. I don't know. I think it's realistic that, you could go 8-0 in your games in January, that you could pick up that one last game on New Year's Eve against Georgetown. And then if you can beat DePaul, then you're rolling right into that UConn game, feeling really, really confident. So, but we handled Harvard. That was the last one after Kentucky. I think you can get these next 10 games and be 11-0 on those games post Kentucky heading into UConn.
Are you going to sprinkle some of those lefty winnings from tonight on a perhaps 10-0 start, or run the table Big East play? Why not take
put my money where my mouth
there,
is? Yeah. And
well, you bring up.
Go
ahead. I was going to say, am I predicting a 10-0 start? No, but There's a chance. I'm not sure if he'd be favored at Villanova right now. Other than that, you might be favored in every one of those games until you see UConn. As crazy as that sounds, you might only be a hair favorite in some of these games at Creighton. But home versus Butler, home versus Seton Hall, home versus Marquette, at Butler, at Georgetown, home versus Providence, you're favored in all those games by whatever the margin is. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. And we saw St. John's get hot at this time last year. We're certainly still waiting for it. I'm still thinking it's a definite possibility, but sooner or later it's got to actually happen.
Yep. Just got to take care of business.
Okay, is that your New Year's resolution for St. John's to take care of business this year?
Make hay in January.
Make hay in January. All right, a quick one tonight as St. John's takes care of business against Harvard. We've got Christmas coming up, then Georgetown next Wednesday, 8 p.m. FS1. Hopefully not Donnie Marshall. No offense, my man. Anyway, for the Red Storm Rapid Reaction Podcast, I'm Pat Kane. That's Cole Adshaw. For Eugene Lawrence, this has been the Red Storm Rapid Reaction Podcast. Peace.